So, ladies and gents, with Trey, we cut the bull crap and just got straight into some very high level conversations, both about agency and in life. I have known Trey for 3 years at this point. We've been chatting a lot back and forth. I've seen him literally go from nothing to where he is right now, making 60 to 80K a month. And yeah, it's just been an absolute honor to watch. To watch and see his ups and downs and whatnot. So, guys, I hope you enjoy this. If you'd like to join Agency Incubator and you'd like to speak to Caden, who's one of the student success managers at the team, part of my full-time team, part of the GrowYourAgency family, go ahead, just book in a call with him if you got any last final questions about how we managed to get our students such incredible results with such consistency. So with no further ado, hope you guys enjoy. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another student interview. I'm very, very excited for this one. We are here today with Trey. And yeah, the reason I want to bring him on, first of all, is because I'm a big interior design guy and I love his sense of interior design in his apartment.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love the pad, man. Yeah.
It's chic. It's chic. I like it. Apart from that, obviously, Trey is a member of the GrowYourAgency community, going from 6-figure SMA to Agency Incubator. But one thing that immediately I want to tackle right off the bat, even before we kind of get into your backstory and whatnot, is I want you to potentially validate this, because I always say that I've never seen anything out there in terms of the more common online business models where year on year, things just keep compounding and keep getting better. And just like a fine wine, it just gets better and better. I've even seen it with e-commerce brands, clothing lines, this, that. Like with most businesses, you face entropy after a few years. Like it's hard to stay relevant. Whereas like, only way I'd compare is kind of like a lawyer. Like, when a lawyer is 60 and they've had years and years of being in the profession, that doesn't make them like irrelevant. Whereas with you see it all the time with e-commerce brands and stuff like that. It's a fickle world out there. Whereas like, what I love about the service-based industry is you just get to a point after like 2 years, 3 years, where you've done something enough and you just feel like so bulletproof in your ability. You've just got it so dialed in. And plus, while you should be doing outreach and in some cases even doing some advertising for your agency, to be honest, I think after 2-3 years, you get to a point where you got enough inbound and enough referrals just kind of to last you for the rest of your life.
Easy, for sure. I honestly feel like I work less now than I did when I was starting. And I think you understand. I think I've talked to you about that before, where it's like a feedback loop, man. And I think you're on your own feedback loop with the education side and the agency side. And I experienced my own version of that, where it gets like, when I track my first, like the 0 to 1's the hardest jump, dude. It's like the hardest jump is 0 to 1. But once you've done that, like it genuinely does get easier. Yeah. And I think for me, like literally recently, for example, I had a client pay us like 10 grand up front, and with the back end that I've got, I kept 9 grand of that. And I talked to the client maybe twice since then. And, I've got a really nice little setup going, and I'll talk more about my niche and everything like that. I'm sure you'll ask those questions, but yeah, like literally it was barely any work. It was like, I met them through a Facebook group. Within 36 hours, they paid me 10 grand up front. And we're building them a sales call funnel, by the way. So I'll just build a sales call funnel. And then if they like the funnel and it's working organic, we'll run ads to it as well. And that's like a total upsell. So they could become a monthly retainer of like 3 to 6 grand, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, awesome. That's what I'm doing. It's pretty sick. Like, and then like, bro, like my first sale, like it was like a $600 a month client, and it just like just bombed completely. And so it's cool because you're completely right. It's a feedback loop, and there's a compounding thing here where it not only you make more and more money, but it gets easier and easier. And now I just feel like I wake up and like I just can just zen out and just fall into this flow state. And I'm not forcing things to be like it felt like I was, maybe a year, 2 years ago, where I was like, just like hustling for every client and like pushing. It really is just like I wake up, hop on a couple sales calls, close some, don't close others. And it's just a very zen state to be in. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I love it.
Yeah. And, it's not this, kind of, as I mentioned, it's not this thing specific to having an agency. It's just genuine. You're in the service-based industry. It's like, you just get to a point where you're a Roger Stone type character, where it's just like, like everyone just knows you, like you're the go-to. And it can be in this really small, tiny micro niche, or even against, even across a certain like age demographic or a certain type of client specifically, but it happens. And it's this crazy thing.
Yeah.
And I also just feel as though, I don't know what your experience is with this, but like I don't know. For me, my kind of like awakening was mid 2018. Like mid 2018 was the first time where I looked at my agency and I was like, I got this shit. Like for once, it just feels like everything kind of goes to slow motion. You zen out. You're not reactionary anymore. You're at the, you know, it feels as though you're actually at the cause, not the effect. Yes. And you just, it's anything to chime in there?
It just, yeah, like 100%. Like I feel like I'm more at a place now to make it sound a bit more spiritual than it might be. I feel like I can speak things to be now, as opposed to at the start, it felt like I had to really like let things come to me and force them into play. And it's that concept of power versus force, you know, and it's like when you have a good service and you've got client attraction. So the way that I teach is like client attraction machines, client results machines. You get those two things, you've got a business. Client attraction machines, it's like Facebook groups, ads, all kinds of methods you could use there. Client results, get a contractor on board if you don't know the frick you're doing, but hopefully you do know what you're doing. And then you just merge those two and you've got a business. But in order, it's a catch-22 because it's kind of hard to have this one without this one, and you sort of slowly need to build them both up. But once they're both built, it's almost like you can step back and let them do their thing, you know? And that's where I'm trying to get right now. I've just made a big investment. Like I'm basically learning from this guy who built a team of like 30 people, and I want to build a huge team. Like I used to run this Thursday evening Bible study with like young guys. It was like a young guys Bible study. And like I envisioned that, but it's like a multi-7-figure operation, you know, and we all just meet like weeknights or something like that and hang out, and we have this huge business. And so that's like the next step for me right now. I'm like a sole operator. Like though, like people will look at me and be like, oh, that's a cool business. Like I'll be honest, I'm still at a stage right now where I'm like a highly paid, like self-employed, you know, and I've got some contractors, I got some people on board. And if I were to step back, it would probably run for like a good month and a half, but not like truly an asset I could sell, which is where I want to get. Cause I want to sell this thing for like, you know, 4 or 5 million at some point and have like a big exit or something like that. I just think that'd be cool.
Have you ever, and I mean, you know, but I love this. Like we even mentioned prior to the call, I was like, yeah, like I just hit record and like, you know, whatever comes out. And, you know, like for me, generally these interviews I do with people from GrowYourAgency.com, it's just like, these are conversations, you know, we enjoy having in private. Like, you know, if I'm sure one day we'll be both lucky enough to be in the same city. And these are just like sort of conversations we'd have over some sushi.
For sure.
So, you know, I think we've kind of circumvented all the beginner stuff. And we're kind of going to advanced stuff. I really just want to touch on because I guess for me in my mind, I know there's certain things that I have to get in place in order for me to sell my agency. My agency has never been something that I've looked long-term at selling, but it's always been interesting to me to see people, putting specific pillars in place for their agency. So that way, one day it could be sold. You know, I'm speaking with the team right now. There's a rebrand I want to do. I'll tell you off camera. A big, want to spend around 80 grand on a new domain for the agency. It's totally baller.
That's crazy.
But with kind of that in mind, you know, so that way there's actual brand equity, and it's not, you know, my initials media. It's like an actual business. So when you say that you have intentions to sell it, is there anything you're doing specifically to make sure that's feasible?
It's less there's anything specifically. It's more I'm just not doing a few key things. There's the first concept. So like there's this. Do you know Jim Rohn? You familiar with Jim Rohn?
Yeah.
Of course. Cool. Huge legend. One of my favorite authors, favorite speakers, and he talks about like you want to build a business where not all roads lead back to you. So like eventually, you know, like in the business model that we're in, you know, it's very brand driven. That's totally cool. But like I want that to be my cash machine. Whereas on the side, I'm genuinely building a business that like has nothing to do with me, and I want to slowly move my agency in that direction. And I do that, you know, by thinking, all right, what roles am I playing that genuinely somebody else could probably play better? And like you know, just all humility, somebody else could probably do that better. And then it's all about like getting the right people on board and then letting them guide it versus knowing where you're going, then getting people on board to get there. And so my whole goal right now, because I'm making plenty, like, you know, I'll make like anywhere from 60 to 80 grand right now. And I'm 20, like that's more than enough money for me, especially living in Indiana. Like the common income here is like 40 grand a month, or not a month, a year.
A year.
A year. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, Indian is not balling out. Yeah, it's like most people are industrial workers, truckers, stuff like that, farmers. That's the gig around here, right? And so walking around, with like a Daytona, like I'm like a freaking phenomenon. It's crazy.
It's good to see
But
you building up that watch collection. Makes you
yeah,
so
it's
happy.
it's fun, dude. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I got the Datejust first, and I got the Daytona now, and I've got my eyes on a VP next. So yeah, I love it. But yeah, so like, my whole goal right now is just to kind of let the brand do what it can do, but on the side, do my best to build a business where all roads don't lead back to me. Because what happens is, like, I'm aware that I'm ultimately, though I'm skilled and I'm really good at what I do, ultimately I'm broken. Like if I break, it's broken. Like if I get sick, it's broken. If my ego gets too big, it's broken. Like there's all kinds of things that could get in the way. And so I admit that. And so I'm trying to build a business where roads lead to one another, or like systems and processes, and not everything leads back to me. And I think it was Jim Rohn, it was like John Maxwell or someone who said that, like, build an organization where all roads lead to all roads, not all roads lead to you. And that's like the typical person that I look at for that is like Gary Vee. Like, not to bash him, he's built something incredible. But if he were to die, his business would not go on, like straight up. It just wouldn't go on. They might take on some clients, just off of like reputation, but it wouldn't be here in like 20, 30 years. If you get in a car accident tomorrow, like it just wouldn't be here. And so my goal is to build something that like outlasts me. And really I just do that by asking what roads are leading to me that don't need to be leading to me right now. And that's where my brain's at right now, dude. I'm in my own little zone right now working on that. Because I want my agency to just like fly. And also for selfish reasons, I want to be able to take a month off and just like go to like the islands or something and just sip mimosas and not worry, yeah.
So what are your next systems you're putting in place, or what are the next hires, or what are the next few steps in order to make that happen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we totally did skip all the beginner stuff, didn't we? We were just straight to advanced stuff.
Fuck it. I've got plenty of those. Let's stick on. I like this path.
Sweet, cool. So really, I definitely think there are a few big jumps I need to make, but I'm almost of the train of thought where like, if I just keep doing what I'm doing now and just let that grow, like the next steps will make themselves clear. I don't really know what my next big moves are. I just know that like, it's almost like Bezos was in like an interview and he was getting congratulated for like Q4 of 2014 or 2015 or something. The interviewer was like, "Hey, congratulations, you guys had this huge quarter. Like, what did you guys do differently?" He's like, "Well, I didn't do crap differently. Like, we built this quarter 5 years ago. We're just going to keep doing what we've been doing." So when people ask me that question, like, all due respect, I have no freaking clue. Like, I don't know what my like next big step is and like my next big hires. All I know is that I've got a good system for attracting and selling clients. And my goal is to get myself out of that so that I can scale further than me, because I'm one person with like a, 6-hour workday, maybe 8 hours if I really push. Like, there's only so much I can do. So my goal is specifically, I want to bring on a sales guy. I know I need that. I know I will always be the best at sales, but I'm willing to trade a little bit of a sales percentage for automation. And I've made that decision in my head. And next is to really dial in our paid attraction strategies, because right now I can't attract a client for like $1,000 to $2,000. But that's too much. I want to be spending way less than that. And I also want to have downsells for people who aren't fully qualified for our higher tier services, like maybe like a program we put them into or something. So we're still making money off of those sales who they just genuinely can't afford what I'm doing. And I respect that. So that we're still making some revenue off of that. So there's all kinds of ideas, bro. There's like so many routes my head could go, but really it's two things. It's sales guy and paid ads. Like I want to get to a point where we're spending like $1,000 a day on, particularly we're spending on YouTube, actually, not even Facebook. We're doing YouTube because it just scales way better. So I'm doing YouTube ads to a sales call funnel, taking sales calls right now, spending like $200 per sales call, maybe. Yeah. I just want to scale that up and get that process way dialed in.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's super, super important. Just having some sort of, I was talking this morning with one of the copy paste agency students, dude's a BC doing like 150K a month. And he spends around 30 grand a month on advertising. And we were talking because he has that same issue because he only has one offer. And it's like, that's awesome. You got your perfect ideal client, but he's got 30 to 40, he's getting 30 to 40 surveys a day at the moment. And there's so many clients who are like 80% the right fit, but it's just that last 20%. Like we, as an agency owner, you sometimes in the beginning, I feel as though you you'll have that gut feeling, but you'll just lie to yourself. But once you've been in it a while, you learn to trust that gut instinct, and if you should work with a client, or even if they might be a brilliant client, but just something there for that to work on a monthly basis just isn't there.
Yeah.
So I was talking with him, and even if you just have some sort of downsell, as you said, some sort of second offer that at least liquidate, like for us, it's our strategic referral partners. Any given month, we're making like 5 to 8K a month just by taking the leads who fall below our minimum retainer, which is definitely quite a lot for most people. And we take our strategic, most of our strategic referral partners offer 100% of the first month because they know that
their
average.
That's pretty smart.
Oh, dude, you got to get on that, because it has helped us liquidate entirely our ad cost. And I don't know why I didn't think about it earlier, because I was like, I'm getting all these. Yeah, I'm getting and on our strategic referral partner side, as I said, they don't mind giving us 100% the first month because they sign 3 or 4 month minimums anyways, but their retention is closer to 5 or 6 months. And from just like a fairness perspective, like they know that we generally paid for those leads. So we put in our groundwork, and Danny did the first demo call with them, qualify them, this, that. So definitely a downsell, but also strategic referral partnership. We haven't done a downsell just because we just thought the SRPs could be our downsell. But definitely something to think about.
Yeah. I love it, dude. I don't want to make this like one of your most boring interviews. I feel like we've gone.
No. I'm telling you, people will love this. One thing I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a couple things I want to talk about, but obviously, dude, we've known each other for like 3 years now, and it's just super awesome. Yeah. Like when I don't know, my story intimately. I know your story intimately. Like not only have we known about each other for 3 years, but we've been exchanging voice notes for 3 years, and my lows.
It's just been like an on and off thing, dude. And I'm just inspired by you, and like it's just cool to see how far you've come, And like, bro, like I don't know, am I allowed to like share my story, what got me into this, and just give people some context?
Dude, of course.
Yeah, sweet. So like about 3 years ago, I was 17. Obviously, I'm 20 now. 17 at the time. And I went through a house fire. I was actually a wedding photographer. So I was making like maybe like $1,000, $2,000 a month, like shooting weddings for people, which is freaking cool. It got me really good with people, got me really comfortable in pressure situations. Cause bro, you're 17 years old shooting a wedding. Like what the frick is wrong with you?
You cannot get that wrong. You can't get
it wrong.
You only
you
got one chance.
You cannot mess that up. Like you miss the first kiss, you're screwed.
Talk about the stress. Talk about the stress of running ads for a client. Doesn't compare to a wedding photography.
No, literally, bro. I became a stress machine. Like it was probably one of the things that really helped me. It was like now I'm like really risk averse, or like is that the right word? Like averse. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll throw 20 grand to ads now, and it's just like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like I'll get on sales calls with clients that are freaking way out of my league, and I'm just like zen. And I look back on that call, I'm like, holy frick, I should have been way more nervous for that. But anyway, wedding photographer. And then like a year into that, I go through a house fire. Lightning hits the house, lose all my gear. Sorry, the sun's coming out. It'll be weird, the lighting. But I lose all my gear, and I'm trying to figure out like, what do I do next? And I realized like the real asset that I built was like being able to market my business as quickly as I did. So I started helping other wedding photographers market their business. And I did a version then of what I do now. I had a course version, and I had like an actual done for you version. Basically how to start and grow a wedding photography business using ads, funnels, stuff like that, because I generally understood that stuff because it runs in the family as well. My father's like a internet marketer type, right? And so I was like, I kind of understood ads, that whole thing. And so that's why I was able to grow so quickly at like 17. Nobody can get their first wedding within like a month, and I got like 4 the first month. Like, how do you even do that? So, but then I was like, all right, wedding photographers are a hard niche because they're not really business people. They're more like passionate. Like, what's a niche that I can really go after? Like people who are really like business people. So I was like, all right, e-commerce. So I'm just gonna like try and do like, I was the typical Facebook ads for e-commerce. And I think I even met you back when I was into Shopify and doing that whole thing. I even had like a Shopify channel to attract clients and stuff like that. And just evolved to the point where it is now, where, we're seeing 60 to 80 grand a month. Last month we literally were just shy of the 7-figure run rate. We did like $79,000 collected. So it's freaking cool. And yeah, I mean, it evolves, man. And really the lesson you could probably learn from my story is that like, there is no one right or wrong way to do it. Like, all due respect, you are a huge example, but you don't have to do it the way Iman did it. You don't have to do it. I do it. You have to figure out how it works for you. And that when I realized that I need to stop directly modeling like the people I'm seeing and just figure out, all right, what are they doing that I can apply in my business? That's when things like just shot up. Is because I stopped like trying to pose right or like be the right person. I just like was like how do I sell more crap? You know, like how do I sell more of my thing? And like it's really simple once you get to that point. But I think people overcomplicate it so much, and that's one of the things with like the entire, like that's one of the almost the unbreakable flaws of the business model that we're in, man, is people will look and they don't know what's going on internally. I think you made a video about that at one point. It's like behind the curtain or something, like the behind the curtain phenomena or something like that, where like people assume there's something going on when really it's actually kind of simple. We just have systems to sell things. Like that's it, you know? So yeah, that's my story, man. Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on is, kind of, you've been in this world for what, 3 years now?
Yeah, I feel like I've been doing it right for like a year. So, but yeah, like 3 years. Yeah.
You kind of been in this world for 3 years. You're at a point right now where it seems like, this year, 2020, you're on a run rate for 7 figures. And I wanted to talk about what drives you, what motivates you as an entrepreneur at this point. What gets you excited to work? Because like I know there's a lot even over the space of the last year that's changed for me. I'd say probably the last year especially that's changed for me. I think I've matured a lot as an entrepreneur in many different ways that I could talk about for 3-4 hours.
Bro,
but
same here.
But I wanted to focus specifically on you and just get your opinion, just from all aspects, from what drives you. What did you want to buy a year ago compared to what do you want to buy now? What sort of lifestyle did you want to live a year ago compared to what do you want to live now? Spiritually, where were you a year ago compared to where you are? Just because I feel as though, once again, in the same way it happens with an agency, I feel as though as an entrepreneur, there is this.
Dude, it
feels like it's overnight.
Dude, there's no such thing as business growth without personal growth. Like Sam Evans, bro, he's like, there's no such thing as business problems, only such thing as personal problems that reflect in your business. Like that is a huge concept that I had to internalize. And so honestly, like the biggest changes have been internal. There's nothing really that different like that I'm doing now that I wasn't doing at some point in my journey, but I just didn't know how to leverage it back then. And I didn't really give myself the permission to leverage it back then. And I didn't really lean into it like I should have if I had the right mentality. Like I honestly just didn't feel worthy of the success that I wanted to have. It was a total self-image thing. It was like, I'd grown up in this environment where like I grew up pretty well off. Like I had like parents that did pretty well, and like I always kind of had this idea that I'd kind of just be like the typical stereotypical lazy kid who's got like a successful dad, and like that's what you do. And like that was a hard thing for me to get over. It's interesting. It's like it's its own battle. I had to basically deny the blessing of my dad and be like, I'm gonna build this for myself because I need to. And it was a really hard like battle. And it was like that took me like a year. That alone was like a whole year of like totally shifting my expectations of myself, which is interesting too now because I'm coming back around and my dad's going to be like one of our biggest clients, which is pretty cool. And it's just, I'm proud because it stays in the family and I want that, but I had to get over the whole, like, looking for the easy way out bull crap. Does that make sense? Like looking for shortcuts, looking for things that like give me the short-term satisfaction. So yeah, a year ago, like, honestly, I was like, I would say more like 2 years ago, because I kind of like where I was a year ago. A year ago kind of led to where I am today. I would say 2 years ago was really what I'm not really proud of who I was then. And I was just super like ego driven, like very out to prove something, very like, like I had a lot of people who doubted me and I took it super personally and like, had all of these things just in my head that just slowed me way down. And it started with a girl I was dating that I actually ended up breaking up with around the time of the fire that I mentioned, and her whole family just like thought I was a punk. And I honestly was, so I don't blame them. But I took it super personally, and it like motivated me like in a bad way. And I got super resentful and I cut a bunch of people out, and it just really unhealthy way of operating. And so really it just took a moment. So like, I'm a Christian, and I sat down, I thought about it, like what honestly would God want me to be doing? Which is a powerful question to ask when you have the sort of faith that I've got. Like, what does he actually envision for me? And it's not that. And I realized that, like, it's not any amount of money with the wrong intent. Like, money with wrong intent is just a really ugly thing. So it's money with right intent that's a really beautiful thing. And so I had to fix my intent. So what was my intent? Like, my intent was to look good. that was my intent. Like 100%, I wanted to look good. I wanted to be seen. I wanted all these things. And the second I let go of that, it was actually way easier because I was able to make decisions that made me kind of look like an idiot. You know, like things like, you know, going all in on online business when everybody around me was telling me to go to college and get a degree and all that stuff, which would have made me look good, but I didn't. I just knew it wouldn't help me. So I had to let go of a lot of image things. And besides that, like honestly, Psycho-Cybernetics, I think it's like one of our favorite books, man. Like freaking incredible book. And it just talks about how, you know, you will never do more or less than your perception of yourself allows. And I honestly just had the perception of myself of like a scrawny, short little white guy who won't ever achieve anything. And I had to overcome so many like, because bro, I grew up like playing Minecraft and like Call of Duty and like staying up till 3 a.m. like chugging Gatorade. Like that was my thing. And so I had to overcome so many things that were stuck in my head that were just repeating and repeating and repeating about who I was and my destiny and what I'm designed to do. So I had to break all kinds of things there. So honestly, like that is the best revenue generating tip I can give somebody. It's not like, sure, build better systems, processes, sell better things, but honestly, it is an internal battle. There is nothing about running a business that is purely external. It is a wholly spiritual, internal, emotional battle. And I believe that entirely. There's just nothing about this that is limited solely to the business itself. It is completely internal, completely. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are just some examples of sort of the difference. I feel like, I don't know if that's hits your question.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that 100%, but just to get a little bit more tactical, it seems like you are a person who doesn't mean it's immediate, but it seems like you come from the heart, you come from the gut, and you can seem to remedy those internal limiting beliefs, the internal self-identity. But just to get a little bit more tactical, what do you recommend? Look, let's say for example, we got a beginner watching this, and they're just trying to get their first client. From a total from a mindset and self-identity perspective, is there anything tactical that you recommend them do?
Yeah, this is what I always tell people, because I'll get that question and like people are like, so, okay, that's cool, Trey. Like that helped you once you were already at one, but like, what if I'm not even at one yet? So yeah, so like, dude, the answer to that question is basically like, you need to ask two things. One, like it's a very simple question. Why do people buy anything? Like, why does anybody buy anything? Like, and at the end of the day, people wake up and they spend money because they're buying a version of themselves that they desire. And then they go to bed having spent that money. And so whenever you're selling a service, like this was the hugest thing. If I could ship this for some of the people in your audience, I guarantee you I'm going to push a couple people over 6 figures just by saying this. You're not selling the technical, you're not selling the service, you're selling the emotional result and outcome for that business owner. You're selling more freedom, more money in their pocket. If they've got a kid coming, they want to feel more secure about that. You're selling like an emotional result. And so that will make it so much easier for you to achieve that 0 to 1. You are not selling the service. I guarantee you, like on the sales calls that I will have like a client come in and be like, hey, like for example, the $10,000 package, they said, okay, so what exactly are you doing, Trey? Like, how does this funnel work? And I knew if I went into details about how the funnel works, they would ask questions and would spiral and I wouldn't make the sale. So I back out and I say, hey, I'd love to tell you more about it, but let me ask again, let me clarify your goals. You're saying you want to 4X your business in the next 1.5 years, right? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, and you want to do that because you want to provide for your grandkids, right? And she's like, yes, 100%. I'm like, sick. Okay. In which case, I just want to help you do that. I think a funnel is really going to help you build that. And then I graze over that. And then she's locked in. So my whole thing is stop focusing it's a sabotaging loop when you focus so much on the technical. Now you got to be good at what you do. You have to be able to get results. But the second you're even like decent enough to get like a 1.5 ROAS for an e-commerce store, you are enough to get out there and start selling as long as you're listening. I think the most important part of selling is listening. So that'd be my biggest tip. I think people go down this spiral, this crazy spiral, getting more and more and more technical, thinking that on the other end of understanding something technical, they're going to be better at attracting clients. And that's just not the case. It's just truly not the case. So if I could go back to myself when I was at 0 and tell myself that what you're doing has emotional value for somebody, and to speak to that, not just what you're going to do. You need to be able to do both, but not just what you're going to do. Then I think that one would have come like a whole year sooner, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, dude, we've talked about some very, very high level stuff. I mean, I know I know you're the type of person I could keep going on for 3 or 4 hours about a lot of stuff, especially a lot of stuff out of the business. I'd love to talk about. But hey, maybe in a year or so we'll get you on for a second interview. You'll be at 150K by then.
Cool. I love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, dude. Appreciate your time and for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks, Iman. Appreciate you, man.
Cheers.